changing the world of work for women everywhere. We are Watermark. We're the only nonprofit women's leadership organization that spans all industries. We connect, develop, and advocate for the advancement of women in the workplace. The Watermark community includes senior executives, entrepreneurs, and emerging executives that support you not only at the top of your field, but also on your way up.
Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I'm very excited to introduce Gladys Kong. Gladys is the CEO of UberMedia, which is not to be confused with Uber. And she's never heard that joke before either, so we're off to a good start. She previously served as the company's Chief Technology Officer and General Manager. Prior to UberMedia, she was co-founder and CEO of a social interactive gaming company, Go Interactive. She was VP of Engineering at Snap.com, VP of R&D at Idea Lab. She holds a BS in Engineering and Applied Science from Caltech and a Master's in Computer Science from UCLA. And because I love listicles, she was named at one point Business Insider's, one of Business Insider's 30 most powerful women in mobile advertising. So she's a rock star. And that's a very long-winded way of saying that, and I'm very happy to be interviewing her today.
Thank you.
I feel like there's like space here. Should I move closer to you?
No,
or
I'll
do you
move
wanna...
closer to you.
Okay, there we go. So I guess for people who don't know, why don't we start off talking just a little bit about UberMedia and what UberMedia is and what you do there.
So I'm CEO of UberMedia. So UberMedia, not to be confused with Uber, which I got that question every time. It's a mobile data and technology company. We harness mobile data from mobile apps that you use on your phone, and we use it to power our lines of business in advertising, business insights, as well as in location measurement. So we are founded in 2010, just a little bit after Uber, and we started out as a social media company. That's why the name Media, and we pivoted in 2012 into a mobile advertising and technology company.
And how did you end up as UberMedia CEO?
So I started in the company at 2012 as the CTO of the company. That's when we made the pivot to build an advertising system. And so I built the system from the ground up, hire every team member to build it because we really pivoted to a different business. So we actually have to rebuild the team. And so for 3 years, I spent building the technology, so I know it really well. I'm really passionate about it. I love the team. And when the opportunity presented itself that I could try to broaden my experience to learn more on the business side, I raised my hand and I said, I would love to do that. I've been building technology for most of my career. I want to see where I can actually take technology. So I started being a general manager and then eventually became the CEO of the company.
Was ad technology something that you were always interested in? It's funny, one of my coworkers once made the joke that he wasn't even sure that people in ad tech fully understand ad tech. Like it can be a very complicated thing, but it's a kind of critical part of our online experience now.
Yeah.
Is that something that was always of interest to you?
Let's put it this way. I did not dream of being an advertising executive when I was growing up. Choosing my career. When I joined, like I said earlier, it's a social media company, but I really was trying to build something, technology that I feel it would be the next generation of something. And at the time, mobile advertising was blossoming. And I want to apply some of the more innovative thinking to it and see how can we get, as all of you know, when you get an ad, sometimes you're like, ugh, I want to get more relevant ad using data to just deliver better experience to users. And data is really my passion. How to use data, how to leverage it to make better business decisions is what I'm passionate about. And so to answer your question, so no, I wasn't really interested in advertising per se, but I'm interested in learning in an industry that is growing so fast and also in applying data.
In an industry as well that is increasingly automated.
Yes.
So you're sort of looking for the best way to match content, ads with content, and also probably avoid other types of content at the same time.
Yep.
I want to get more into your career. I feel like I kind of want to build back up to this point, but I'd like to talk about your background first because it is so interesting and fascinating. You came to the United States when you were 14 years old. Tell everyone a little bit about that experience.
So when I was 12, my parents took me to the States and my mom decided it's time we want to send me and my sister, 2 years older than me, to the States to get an education. And we got into a taxi from the airport, and my mom asked the cab driver, what is the best school in San Francisco for girls? Best high school. And that's where I ended up. Thank
Where did
God.
he take you, or did she take
Convent
you?
of the Sacred Heart.
Okay.
Yeah, so
We have someone
I
over here.
really want to find that cab driver and thank him, because I could have ended up in a very different way, a different place. So then when I was 14, I came here and started high school, and that changed my life quite a bit, because I wasn't so quiet when I was in Hong Kong growing up. I was actually very active in sports. I was in student council. But all of a sudden, when language was kind of taken away, where I'm not feeling very confident about speaking English, it changed me. I turned into more of a listener. I want to make sure I'm listening and paying attention to people's body language, so I don't make a fool of myself. I understand what they're saying. So as time goes on, it becomes a habit of mine that I'm always listening, always looking for cues, and so I've become more of an observer rather than a speaker. And so that gravitates me towards science and math, because language matter a little less in those subjects, and I feel like I can excel in those. And so having a great STEM education was probably the root of where I'm today, and I'm very thankful of that. And I became very confident and really passionate about science and technology. And then I moved on to Caltech to get my education there. And a lot of people I work with today came from Caltech, so that gave me a lot, that education. And then I stayed in Pasadena since I moved there. And I started a career with Idealab after my graduation from UCLA. And so continuously, I got a lot of opportunity to become a VP of engineering, to then start my own business, and now come back and be a CTO, and then grow into where I am today. So it's a long journey, but it's just such a meaningful and learning experience.
And when you were at Caltech studying engineering, did you notice, was there a balance in genders in the classrooms? Were there more?
No, there was no.
Okay, what was that like?
That's very much like working in a tech world.
So it prepared you.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was good. I was actually a very normal kid at Caltech, because I like shoes, I like to dress. I'm not the typical what you see on the TV shows. But it gave me the language, and it gave me all the experience of how to work with a group of very technical people, and mostly men. So at the time I went, it's probably 1 in 6 as a woman at Caltech. Now it's probably a lot better. It's 1 in 4. So it was a great experience. It helped me figure out how to work with a team of mostly men when we do group projects, and when we have to communicate, and when we just hang out with each other. So that was a very valuable experience.
You've described yourself as an introvert.
Yeah.
What does introvert mean to you? I ask people this question a lot, because I often feel like I'm an introvert, but
Yeah.
people are surprised by that, because I'll talk and talk and talk. But it actually, to me, means like what you kind of enjoy doing, or what you get your energy from. And like, what does being an introvert mean to you in an engineering role?
Being introvert means this is not easy, like speaking here in front of a crowd. Also, if I go out to a conference, I'm mostly interested in absorbing and learning. It takes more effort to be networking and speaking to others, because I'm just not naturally good at that. But I love actually talking to people. But it takes some effort to start a conversation. It takes some effort to walk up to someone you don't know.
So at some point, you were matched up with Bill Gross.
Yes.
I'm thinking that was at Idealab. And
Actually, before.
It was before. Okay, so talk a little bit about that.
So when I was at Caltech, my sophomore year, my first summer internship was to work for Bill Gross. I didn't know who he was. I just looked at the opportunity. It was prototyping a children's educational software, and I find that very fascinating. So I did that, and so that's when I first met him, before I even graduated from Caltech. And in '99, I applied for a job at Idealab, and I didn't even mention I knew Bill. I just got the job, and then Bill said, "Oh, you're here," and then so then from then on, we worked together for many years.
So you got the job fully on merit. You didn't have anybody pulling any strings.
No,
And he was probably
at
like,
the
why
time-
did Nate drop my name? And
At the time, if you remember the internet boom, they're hiring anybody that can code. So I wouldn't give myself too much credit.
you should give yourself credit. Yes. So this ended up being a pretty auspicious relationship because he became a mentor of yours, and essentially you've now been an executive at more than one company. I mean, talk a little bit about that idea of mentorship. And this is not to give too much credit, by the way, to someone other than you, because
No, but
you're doing
it's
it.
important.
You're doing the job. But
I would say anybody looking to grow, a mentor can help you tremendously. He opened my eyes to a lot of things that I wouldn't normally be able to see, because just being an engineer, being in your job, you don't see what's like to go out and raise money, for instance. I have been with him where we're starting a company. I've seen him pitch in front of VCs. I've seen him speak about the company publicly. Those are things that really help me today when I become a CEO of my own, to just have those experience exposure and having a mentor that guides you in some areas that you're not as good as, and just being able to talk about challenges, it's really helpful. I would say that's one of the most important part of my career, is to have really great mentors that help me along the way.
at what point did you say to yourself that you would like to sort of go the executive path? Was that always in mind? Because you think about engineers, and engineers thinking if they really love to code and they really love to build things, that's sort of what they want to do. And the idea of maybe managing a team of 40 people, just like put them into
So
like
I think I
cold
already
sweat.
know my interests. When I applied for a job at ID Lab, prior to that, I was a programmer. And when I applied, they were actually looking for both programmers and a project manager. And I said, I would like to be a project manager. And they look at my resume, they said, you are a programmer. I said, I would like that because I've learned that from 7 years of programming. I actually like to work with people. Programming is a lot of times a lone job, and you do a lot of work alone. You collaborate, but I actually like to work with a team of people where I'm not coding, but I'm actually getting things done. So I haven't tried that, and I wanted to try that. So that was my first step, and being able to be exposed to doing something a little different than just pure engineering. Then I realized just project management is not just what I like. I do like to be in touch with engineering, so I moved on to become a technical manager.
And this was at Idea Lab?
At Idea Lab.
Okay.
So I moved on to become a director of engineering and then a VP of R&D. So that gave me the world of what I love. It's to be able to work with people, manage them to get something done together, but also be in touch with the technical side.
So that was your first real kind of executive role.
Yes.
What did you learn from that? What was the most important thing you learned from your very first time, leading people?
The first time I learned when you actually cannot use your own hands to finish something, but have to inspire someone else to do it, is actually a lot harder. It's much easier to say, let me just get it done. But you can't. You can't get everything done because there are a lot of people that need to do their part. And just using your influence, using your words, using your skills to do that, it's a very different skill set, and it's a challenge. And I love doing that part. I love learning how to do that better.
Was there a specific moment or project you can recall that you realized, okay, I'm going to have to delegate here?
Well, I started when I first joined Idea Lab, I was a programmer, but I actually don't know very much about the internet. I have never coded in any website or any, so I actually did not have the right skill set, but I have the capability to learn. But that was perfect for me because I was a project manager. I can't do some of the work that I needed to do to complete the project. So I really rely on the team. And I remember I was working with a team of engineers that every day, part of my job was to ask them, what did you accomplish today? I would sit down there and I would draw silence. They would be looking at me like, it's going well, good. And then I would be like, okay, so how can I get them to talk? Because that's part of my job. I'm supposed to report how they're doing. So then I learn and really understand what each of them are doing. Then I start asking questions where it's harder to say a one-word or two-word answer. And so it took a lot of effort to get to a point where we're conversing on what they're doing. And I said, okay, how do you solve this problem? And as long as you get into more detail and you know the subject matter, they're much more willing to talk to you. So now fast forward 15 years later, I still work with one of the engineers I started with that day. She's now the CTO of my company. And we had a joke about remembering those moments when he was not answering my question. He said to me, a vague question deserves a vague answer. So that's what I learned about an engineer's mind. You got to know what you're talking about when you talk to them.
Right.
So
Yeah, you can't delegate if you don't know the language.
No. So those are the moments I learned. In order to get people to do the work for you, you have to learn what they need to do and put yourself in their shoes to kind of understand what they are trying to help you accomplish.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe your leadership style?
I'm very much of an inclusive leader. I like to listen to everybody's opinion, and then I think, and then I come up with my decision, and I share with them what is the logic behind that. So I'm very much of a listener. I wouldn't say I always listen to everybody's decision. I would make the decision, but I always like to have all their input, because I think everyone comes with a different angle to look at the problem. I love computer science because I love the problem-solving aspect of it, and every day is problem-solving. And when I sit with my executive team, very diverse team of thinking, and I love to hear everybody, even if they're very different from my viewpoint. So I'm very much of a listener and a calm and logical leader.
That sounds exactly like all the CEOs in Silicon Valley. Just calm and logical, male CEOs. So you mentioned earlier when we were in the speaker room preparing that you have a 50-50 sort of, I think it's 50-50 gender diverse
that's right.
workforce.
Yes.
Has that always been the case? Did you have to work up to that? Talk a little bit about how you got there.
To be honest, I did not try specifically to do that, but my goal has always been, I think I told you earlier, I'm a basketball fan. I think for team to work, the team chemistry is very important. So I like to build a team that have diverse opinion, diverse skill set, where it balances each other out, and yet we have a more comprehensive view of things. So just by focusing on that goal, it just happens to be that way, that we hire 50-50. We don't really look for a particular gender for a particular role. So
How many employees do you have?
65.
65. Okay. And is there a breakdown of the types of roles that your sort of your gender diversity spans? Do you have a lot of women in engineering?
I'm not going to lie to you. It's very difficult to hire women in engineering. So my engineering team is still predominantly men, but to balance that, my product team has a lot of female. And also in my data science team, I do have a female data scientist too. So there are some, and I have my head of product is female, my head of mobile app is female. So there are some balances in the different roles. So all in all, the product engineering and data science team is probably 60-40, but it's not bad in a technical organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When I talk about, people always ask me why aren't there more women? They don't even come to the interview. There's just not that many women that even come to interview for engineering jobs. So it's really hard to find.
I mean, how do you think that sort of gender balance, or in other cases imbalance, will impact your industry specifically? And I ask this because there was this really interesting article on Recode just a couple of days ago, it might have been yesterday, about how, as we're training AIs right now, that AIs could be trained to be sort of less diverse in their approach because of the people who are coding and training the AIs, right? So like all of this stuff we're doing now around gender diversity has long-term implications in the actual tech products that we use and we see every day. So how does the gender balance in your workforce impact ad tech specifically?
I think in general, having female, and this is generalizing, obviously there are exceptions, but generally female tend to empathize a little bit more, think about from the user perspective, what is the customer seeing, how is this experience, and even internally, they have more empathy for what does the sales team want. Whereas my male employees are more focused, laser focused on just getting the job done, building the best technology, the best product, and not as looking at things as broadly as some of the
Yeah, it's like humans be damned.
So I think if we go too imbalanced, and we will have products that are not as thoughtful, I think, as it could be. But generally, having a more balanced team, you just balance it a little better. Your product tends to be a little bit better.
How do you work on retention of your female employees?
So both male and female, but generally, we have a culture of we're a team, we're in this together, we're very open, we're a very transparent company. Every quarter, losses, challenges, success, we share it with the entire company. And we are very supportive work-life balance. I myself have 3 children, and I do take my vacation with them, and I encourage, we have an unlimited PTO policy where we encourage, being a startup, a lot of times people just feel like they can't really take vacation because it would be frowned upon. So we don't even want to be a problem. We trust the team that we hire. They can take vacation anytime they want, as long as it's approved. But everybody tends to take their vacation every year, and to me, that's a healthy way to continue to work hard, but also have the time off, and that really helps. And I think over time, I think as employees are happy, the culture spread and people just like being there. And we're very proud. We actually won EdAge Best Places to Work this year, and also LA Business Journal. So in general, the culture is where people do like to work there.
So you're based in, well, I have so many questions I want to ask right now. Let me needle this a little bit more. So we've heard a lot about the pipeline problem, and you've mentioned it yourself in terms of looking for female engineers to hire, and 1 in 6 women being in your engineering class at Caltech. And then there is the retention problem. I think data from Glassdoor has shown that one of the reasons why there are relatively fewer women in technical roles is because they don't feel happy at their roles, they don't feel fulfilled, and they end up leaving. What do you think is the biggest issue surrounding gender balance in a technical workforce today, and how do you work towards improving that?
I think for myself, we used to go to CTO conferences. When I feel I'm one of 20 women in there, it's intimidating. You see that the speakers are all male. What they talk about sometimes may not apply to you, even as a CTO. My style is different. So to be able to encourage more, I think we need more females speaking out and more diversity. Like for me, maybe I don't look like a very typical CEO, but with hard work, with what passion, you can make it there. And just standing out there, being a role model for other engineers to look at and say, I could do that too, is important. I think just more encouragement and more cater to a lifestyle that women won't feel intimidated in, because if you work 80 hours a week and no balance, maybe some people don't want to do that. What if I want to have children? What if all that, I think, needs to be thoughtful and need to be addressed, where people feel comfortable that coming into your company, I'm not selling my soul to you, and I don't have to worry about that. If you go off in a child, you come back, we still work with you. And those are things that I think would encourage more female. Just setting up the environment where it's more accommodating to not just male, but both.
Yeah,
gender.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think being out of Silicon Valley helps with that in any way?
I do think that it also helps with retention because we're in Southern California. There are not as many technical companies, and people are not hopping as fast as they are here. And the culture is a little bit different in Pasadena and Silicon Beach even than here. So I do think it helps.
What is your view of Silicon Valley working for a Los Angeles area based startup? Like, what did your employees sort of have this idea of Silicon Valley tech companies is very different from Silicon Beach, I think it's called?
Yeah, I do think, well, being close to the beach does help. I think generally people think of working in Silicon Valley, you're there 80, 90 hours a week. They feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you do your laundry there. And
Kara Swisher calls it assisted living for adults.
That is sort of the idea. And so I do think some women find it intimidating, and I don't know if I want to do that. I do want to go home, and I do want to cook a meal sometimes. So I think that's the impression we get in being from Southern California.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to ask you, because there's been a lot of reports lately of very overt sexism and sexual harassment in tech, specifically in the venture capital world. And I'm sure a lot of people here know which stories I'm talking about. And unfortunately, it's not a new thing. I mean, we saw the Ellen Pao trial a couple of years ago, and so this is just sort of this thread, this thing. What was your reaction when you first heard the latest news stories about sexual harassment against women in tech?
I was shocked. First, I was shocked that it was so widespread. But I was also very encouraged that the woman actually stood up and tell their stories. I think that would help other women tell their stories and not be so afraid and worry about their future if they speak up. So I haven't personally experienced that myself, and that's why the shocking factor I had when I read about those. But I do think having the word out helps everybody to sort of clean up and change the way things are. And I do think a lot of VC already have spoken out how things need to be male VCs speaking out on how they want to change the situation as well.
Do you think people can change?
I think it will take time. I always think change takes time, but there has to be a start, and I think this started it, and I think that's very important to address this issue.
I would like to open it up for questions because I think we have about 15 minutes left. Is that correct? That's right. Okay. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Go ahead. Oh, thank you.
So I want to know, how have you maintained balance between your work and your life? You have children, right? So how have you managed to become a CEO with having a family as well?
Thank you. That's a great question. I learned to get to this point. I think for a lot of executive, when they first became executive, they're very worried that if they leave their job, they're not doing a great job. So you have that sense of guilt. You have always to be there. And I actually, dating back a little bit, I actually quit when my twins, I have twin daughters and a son, when they were 1. I felt like I have a 3-year-old and 2 1-year-old. What am I doing in the workplace? So I quit my job and I stayed home. I was miserable because by 10 o'clock, I'm like, what else is there to do every day? So I'm not cut out to be that. So I learned that. And when I went back to work, I'm more focused on how do I make this work, because I know I'm destined to work. So then I really carve out time. When I'm working, I'm focused on that. And when I'm done, I'm done. I'm spending time with my children. I'm reading them books. I'm giving them bath. I'm just focused on that. And then when they go to bed, I could check my emails again. But I just carve out the time, focus on one thing or the other, and not mixing and always feeling guilty for one side or the other. I think that's very important to not always be guilty. Otherwise, you can't have a good time at work. You cannot have a good time at home.
I should also note that Gladys is leaving here to fly to San Diego for her daughter's basketball game and then flying to Aspen for the Fortune 500 tech conference after this. So she's got this balance thing down.
Yes.
She's like Wonder Woman. Other questions?
So twice you said you didn't look like a typical, and I guess I would say, to me, you look like a typical CEO. We, even before you started talking, we were like, love those pants, you know? and I do. But how do we get to the point? I mean, I guess when you were in school, you were one of 4, I think, and I was one of 2 computer science women in like a huge class. And out of my STEM group from the 80s, only one of us is still doing anything really super Cody wise. Like the rest of us are doing project management, or I'm in the law department doing it. And how do we get, like, to me, you look like a CEO. So stop apologizing about that, or stop saying anything. But how do we get to the point when we look at the girls who code and when we start looking at technical women, where being into shoes and purses and caring about cute stuff isn't outside of the stereotype, and we are inclusive, and we're like, you can be anybody and still be technical or a coder? How do we get from where we are now to there?
Great question.
But I think start with, for all of us who are in tech, be who we are. I love shoes. I've always loved shoes. And that's why when you look at me, I like that, and I'm not going to tell people that's not cool because I'm a technical CEO. You should be talking about technical stuff. Oh, no, if you show me an ad, I love to tell you if I like that pair of shoes. So I think part of it is to be who you are and not try to fit in, because I think so many people try to fit into a mold, and that's what I feel maybe when I keep saying that is I was never the one to speak up first in most of the meetings. And ever since I was a manager engineer, I always like to listen and say my comment after. So usually, even starting from my kids' age, children that raise their hands like, "Oh, she's going to be a leader someday." That's not true to me, and I think that's important to let the kids know that there's no moat for success or leader. You can be it too, but you have to put in the work and you have to focus on what it takes to be a leader, but not so much what it looks like to have those elements.
A question on that side of the room?
Actually, it's a comment. Hi, Gladys.
Sorry.
Hi, over here.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I'm an alum from Convent.
Ah!
Hi, thank you so much for giving a shout out to us. I also want to say that the foundation at Convent of the Sacred Heart gives you those leadership skills, and they come in all ways. Of course, I was more of an introvert, but that woman leadership is the foundation. Thank you so much for giving us credit for that. I also am on the council, and I would like to have you involved a little bit with the alum council, if you don't mind.
Awesome.
She just asked you in front of a room full of people.
I graduated in a class of 38 people, so I have to say, very great to meet someone from Convent of Sacred Heart, because I have not had the opportunity to meet someone yet. It's a very small school.
Great. More questions?
Hi, my name is Sima Lieberman. I'm really enjoying listening to you too.
Thank you.
My question has to do with the fact that I think gender diversity is really important. And what I notice, though, oftentimes is that it stops when there's a lot of white women inside, and that there's not enough discussion around how do we also bring in women of color? Because there's a lot of women of color who really are qualified, who really are talented, and people say, I can't find them. I think that they're not looking in the right place. So my question to you is, because I consider you like an expert in your field, what do you think people in CEOs need to do, or what else to expand that mindset? Because it's also a mindset, a real mindset of inclusion, not just saying gender diversity and just women and they're all white. I mean, it's fine for all women, but to make it all women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question. I often think about this problem and ask myself, what is true equality and what's true tolerance, and how do you look at that? I actually learned a very valuable lesson when my son was 3. I'm a working mom, so I don't go to school all the time, and I didn't get to see all the kids. So some of his friends, I don't know their names. So he came home and said, I climbed up a rope string all the way with Cameron. I said, who's Cameron? Can you describe him? Oh yeah, he likes to climb, he likes to run, he likes to do all sorts of stuff. And I said, can you describe him? Is it tall, short, what color? I said, no, he just like this stuff. He doesn't see color. He doesn't see tall, short, fat, skinny. And that's how we should look at people. It's just the skills, what they like, what they do, and not so much what gender and what race they are. And I think, to answer your question, I think to design the environment to be welcoming to just people with the skill set is the most important. And I think that's an ongoing, a lot of work to be done in that area.
Mm-hmm. That's a great anecdote, but also you deserve some credit in that as well, because it means you haven't instilled in him, even at a young age, to look at people in that way. And so a lot of times there's a trickle-down effect there that happens. Any other questions?
I think we've got one over here.
Hi there, my name is Rena Vacone, and I'm also really enjoying this fireside chat. So my question for you is, you mentioned you have a daughter, and the fact that you are paving the way for her in so many ways, being mother of three, a CEO, a woman, and also a minority. So what types of things do you hope for her, and what types of lessons do you teach her, specifically your daughter?
I have two daughters. I
Oh,
only
you have
had one
two
pregnancy,
daughters.
but two twins.
Okay. Oh, right, they're the twins.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what I hope for her is, I don't want to put them in a mode where mommy is an engineer, you're all going to be an engineer. No, but I do focus them on math and science because that naturally is a deterrent for a lot of girls. And I don't necessarily need them to pick a career path in technology, but I want them to have that possibility. Like, I want them to look at, my hope for them is that they have the possibility to choose from anything they want to do and not be afraid of it. Not to be afraid there are not so many women later, not to be afraid girls are not good at math. I just want them to, as much as I can, help them remove some of the mind obstacles in their mind so that they can see the world as big as a boy will see the world. So that's my hope for them.
More questions?
Hi.
Hi.
You are so accomplished, and for those of us who are still kind of building things, it looks like you've arrived, right? In your mind, you're probably still on a journey. Okay, good. Because it's important to my question. What is it you're working on right now? And how do you, there are all these thresholds and milestones that all of us are taught to look at. First you become a manager, then you become a leader, then you become a rock star, whatever it is, the path is. But what is it you're working on or have been working on that kind of keeps you close to the edge, keeps your mind fresh?
I have a passion for learning. I love to learn. And so at every stage of my career, I look at what is the next big thing that I want to learn. And then when I tried to branch out of technology, I had a lot to learn in how to do business, how to do sales, how to manage sales and marketing. So I actually branch out and really read and go to conferences and learn and just work with my executives that are in those areas and help teach that. So thank you for saying that I'm here, but I'm not. I'm always on a journey, as everyone is. At this stage, what I'm learning is, I actually started from a year ago. I started to speak more publicly. How do I speak more confidently, publicly? And how do I network better? How do I take the company to the next level? We have a great product, but how do I get the word out? So those are the things that I'm focusing on. It's not something that maybe visibly you can see, but those are always things that I'm working on.
Are you still teaching yourself technical things?
Absolutely. Well, my team teaches me a lot now. They wouldn't let me touch any code anymore.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Chang, and I'm a data scientist for machine learning at Intel. And I'm also part of the Watermark Emerging Executive Committee. And thanks to Watermark, I actually got to know Gladys. Because you know what? I also went to Caltech for undergrad. And you can imagine how hard it is to find another successful woman in my day-to-day life from Caltech, considering my graduation class of all majors is only 200, and that including men and women. And also I learned, Watermark, I learned to be my authentic self and going to be a happy mom and learning from all the moms here. So yeah, so now we're going to take a 15-minute break. And the book sales are still going on outside, and please take advantage of the photo shoot that's going on still. And we'll see you back here at 4, and grab a drink, stay hydrated. Oh, sorry, 2 o'clock. Sorry, not that long break. Come back at 2. Thank you.